Greetings, mortals. Welcome to more TTSB, and today I have for you something different. An interview with a friend of mine who is a GM here at GenCon. And so I'm going to be interviewing you on what your experience has been like, just because that's something that I'm curious about, but also something I think that could be interesting for people to hear about, people thinking about GMing or just think about playing at a con. So maybe we start with just what's a basic takeaway that you had from your time GMing over, 12 hours now? Plus?
Yeah, we're looking at 23 hours, I think.
23 hours so far, and 4 more tomorrow.
Yeah.
So what are some main takeaways? I mean, you can just go off.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing, I was really nervous about professionally GMing for the first time, and professionally GMing, getting my badge paid for to be here, but still this kind
of technically accurate, which is the best kind of accurate.
Exactly. Being GMing a game that someone paid money to play, right? Because all of the people have paid at least $6 to $8 to play in the game that I'm running, but they've all been really great to play with. They've been really great, very respectful. No one's been weird about the rules that I'm running. They coming back. That's so funny. Move out of the way.
So you're talking about the way people have been.
Yes. Yeah. So everyone that I've played with so far has been very they've just been great to play with. Everyone just wants to have fun. You can really tell that they're not there to get their money's worth. They're just there to have a nice time. I've had a variety of games where everyone is a stranger. I ran a game this morning for a family. I ran a game this afternoon for a group of friends who are from different parts of the country, so the only time they get to play together is at Gen Con. And everybody has just wanted to have fun. And even though, the strangers didn't know each other before, they left the game after laughing, having a good time, and just having the experience of playing a new game at Gen Con in kind of an environment that is not, you normally don't, this happens once a year, so.
Yeah, and that seems to be the reputation that Gen Con has, that I've seen almost everyone talk about it. They say that everyone here is super friendly and, just gracious and polite and everything like that, but I feel like there could be some consternation as that's only a certain type of player. But you've run two very different styles of games, so why don't you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been running Root the RPG, which is a Magpie game, which is a Powered by the Apocalypse, based on the board game, which is cute animal art, but then there's these political kind of elements that kind of make it more Games of Thrones-y. But at the end of the day, it airs, at least the games that I've been running with, it airs a lot more on the edge of kind of shenanigans, just doing fun things with your friends, fighting for what your character wants to fight for. Whereas I'm also running Outbreak Undead, which is a very kind of crunchy, gritty survival horror zombie apocalypse game. Mm-hmm. And so that game, has probably close to double or triple the amount of pages of rules than Root does. And the tone of the game has been very different, where it's been a lot more kind of all of the players are very careful. It's okay, you walk into the city and you see windows are bashed in, you can hear the infected walking down a few streets over. How do you guys get to where you want to go? Mm-hmm. And then in Root, I'm just all right, there's a fox who's baking a pie, and they leave it up on their windowsill. What do you want to do? It's I'm going to take it and eat it. So
very different thematically and potentially attract completely different types of gamers.
Absolutely.
but your experience with everybody being
Yes.
pleasant and engaged and just there
Yeah.
to have fun, not so much to get their money's worth.
Yeah.
Same across both.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could kind of tell there's definitely was a different kind of like vibe in terms of like the people who come in to play Root. It's like I like the board game. I like the art a lot. Like I wanted to play like this nice cute game, and then Outbreak Undead. It's like I have played a lot of games with a lot of different mechanics. These mechanics are very specific because Outbreak Undead has a very like unique way of creating like dice pools, and like it's a percentile system, but they have degrees of success, and it gets really crunchy, and I could definitely tell like players were drawn to different games for good
Yeah.
reason, and everyone still like at the end of the day was laughing and talking about the mechanics and talking about the game and just having fun.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you've had such a positive experience with it. You mentioned something to me earlier about gaining insight into like the game specific. You mentioned something about Outbreak Undead, where like your players are helping you gain insight into what type of game it is, and so I guess through running this, not just what did you learn about people, but what did you learn about those games or about GMing?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like because these games I've only run before. I've never been a player in either of these games. So it was interesting after in Outbreak Undead, the way it kind of works with the percentile, you want to roll at or below your skill, and the highest skill anybody had was 48, and that was like rare. Most people were rolling, in the mid 30s, maybe low 40s. So, you're looking at like every like 3 rolls or so, you're only passing every 3 rolls, right? But the enemies are also only passing 3 rolls, once every 3 rolls. So it turns out like I had a player who finished playing, and he was like, yeah, it's interesting, like it ends up being balanced. Like the end result is balanced, but when you're first learning it, it's hard to kind of, you're just seeing your failures. So it turns into, instead of being like, oh, I'm doing better, I'm succeeding and winning this game by doing better than others, and it's more like I'm succeeding by not failing as badly as the others, which I actually think Outbreak Undead, it's a gritty horror game. You're meant to be like barely scraping by. So the vibe is like you are barely scraping by. You're scraping by because you're failing, you're fighting tooth and nail to get to the end, and you're not a superhero. Like the whole point of the game is like you don't get experience points because it's not D&D. This is like real life where you're just maybe getting better with gear, and you can get a little bit better here and there, but it's like a few percentage points. So really at the end of the day, it's can you make smart decisions and not mess up as much as your opponent does.
We love encouraging critical thinking.
Exactly.
However, on the other side, Root, was that the first Powered by the Apocalypse game you've run?
I've run Monster of the Week a few times.
Gotcha. But one of your, not super experienced with Powered by the Apocalypse, and you're talking to me about the mechanics of that and learning how to do that. Can you explain a little bit of your experience with that system?
Yeah. So, Powered by the Apocalypse, very, very common system nowadays. A lot of people are taking it and adapting it for their games.
2d6, you add them together, then 6 or lowers of failure, 7 to 9 partial success or success with a consequence, 10 plus complete success.
Yeah. And, but what Root, and Magpie in general, because the Avatar RPG is similar, where it's a playbook Powered by the Apocalypse game, but they've added mechanics that make it unique. So with Root specifically, because the factions are such a big deal, they've added kind of prestige and notoriety mechanics to keep track of how different factions feel about you. And then you can make faction moves, where it's like, if you want to convince a faction to do something for you, you have to roll with your reputation with that faction. And it advances when you do things that help the factions, and it falls when you do things that hurt the factions. And it's kind of a fun thing to keep track of and kind of be able to see your progress with each faction, especially as players start to like really figure out which factions they don't like and which ones they do. I actually had a player who ended character creation with a -2 to the Marquis de Cat faction. So they just really hated the industrialist cats. So it informed the entire one-shot. This character was like really trying to make sure, like, oh, that person likes the cats. I'm gonna mess with them.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need is just one character to make a strong decision, and that'll change the game.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can just be that one strong character decision that is made that, yeah.
Good.
No, you're supposed to be here, we're not. Yeah, it can be really fun when you have that one strong character decision made at the beginning of the game that can be inspiring and can affect everybody else. And it's great when you have those groups that are understanding, like you said you have, where instead of, no, I want to do the thing that I want to do, everybody's like, oh, that's a cool, strong decision, let's pile on that. And then like, oh, this person has strong opinions on this, let's just go with them, because that's a fun story instead of everyone doing their own thing.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think one of the things running at GenCon, running with people that are complete strangers to me, I've learned how to like improv so much better. Like I feel like you get into a groove with your normal groups, and you kind of know, the flow of how they play and the decisions that they're going to make, and you can kind of figure things out. But with strangers, it's like you have no idea what direction they might go in. So it's been a lot of fun, especially in Root, where there's a lot of like mixed successes, and what does that mean? Kind of dealing with that.
The mixed successes in Root, trying to balance those with players that you don't know.
Exactly. Like when you have mixed successes, it's really up to the GM to kind of figure out what that means and like make it interesting for the players. And so it's been fun kind of through character creation and like talking with them a little bit and playing with them a little bit, kind of figuring out what they want. Figuring out, it's great with the Marquis de Cat character because it was like, I have this NPC who likes the Marquis de Cat, but now that I know you hate them so much, now they're working with the Marquis de Cat. Now they're a part of them. And now there's this whole conspiracy that they can uncover that, isn't necessarily in the book, but I know is something that they want to pursue and are interested in. And, for the players, like, they don't know what's in the book. I mean, even, like, the book isn't, like, canon until you play it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it would make sense for this to be real, so let's make it real.
The number one rule is do what's fun, right?
Exactly.
The rules of the game are secondary to making sure that everybody's having a good time, because the point isn't to play the game right. It's to have fun. Yeah. Any kind of closing thoughts? Or actually, here's a good note to end on. Do you have any advice for players or people thinking of playing at a con, or GMs thinking of running at a con?
Yeah, I think players just go. Like, literally, if there's a game that you think you're interested in, just go and play. Because, no, we're not expecting you to know how to play at all. We're planning on teaching you everything. If character generation is fast enough, we're going to do it with you. If it's not, we're going to provide pre-mades. So, like, Outbreak Undead, pre-mades. Root, we do character creation together. So, like, you really don't need to go in knowing anything. I've had people who only know of Root because of the board game. I've had people who've played before. I've had Outbreak Undead. Someone forgot that they signed up for it and just showed up the morning of and were like, oh yeah, I have this. And other people who just wanted a zombie game. So it's like, if there's anything that you're remotely interested in, just sign up and play it.
Even the crunchy games, you don't have to
Even
know the rule
games.
set beforehand.
Even the crunchy games, yeah. I actually ended up spending about the same amount of time explaining Outbreak Undead as I did doing Root and character creation. So it's just a matter of where are you spending time.
Gotcha. Very cool.
And GMs, like, I was very nervous the first game that I ran because I had no idea what to expect. But it was a fantastic game. There was like a father and a son, a couple, like a middle-aged man, and like it was just really beautiful seeing them all play together and just have fun together. And like it's been an amazing experience. Really, like, it's just immediate fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking this time to talk to me.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for watching, Mortals. I hope you enjoyed this departure from the normal content. Let me know in the comments below, and like, subscribe, do all that good stuff if you want to see more stuff like this. I don't know. I feel like I'm halfway decent at interviews, and if you agree, then maybe we can set up some more in the future. But again, thank you for watching, and good night, Mortals.